The Rockpile Report, the pettiest, hardest drinking Bills podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rockpile Report podcast. I'm your host, Bill, season ticket holder Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger. Ryan Lasal from Rock Sports Network riding shotgun tonight, and we are here talking about our Week 15 preview. The Dallas Cowboys at the Buffalo Bills. Your time. I swear I just want to say 4:15 again just to see Chris's visceral reaction to it.
Well, I don't care. It'll just let everyone else know that's probably like, oh, what's this podcast YouTube show? I'll watch it. And then they see this orangutan say 4:15 and they immediately go, no football game has ever kicked off at 4:15. This guy's a joke. He's got no idea what he's talking about.
I mean, they might not be wrong.
Not far off, at least.
They might not be that far off. Guys, in fact, can someone do me a favor while I vamp and find me the Cowboys injury report?
I got it right here.
Or have they not practiced yet this week?
The only one on the injury report is Jonathan Hankins. It's questionable. The only one.
He can bite my ass. Guys, your time, 4:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Place, obviously at Ralph Wilson Stadium. It's going to be wild. We have one of the biggest tailgates of the year planned this year. So if you're going to be in the neighborhood, you're looking for a place to find some great food, have a couple beers, have a laugh or two with your old boy Drew Gear, come find us, Dock Slot. Chris, what's that address?
I think it's 4180 Abbott Road.
That's 4180 Abbott Road.
Not confident.
Not confident. I am
Buffalo
confident.
Spine and Chiropractic. Look it up.
Also follow him on Facebook. He's got a Dock Slot Facebook group. Or if you just want to get into our group ahead of time, just send me a text. Send me a text. I can get you a parking spot. DM, email, if you're old, like some of our listeners, and can only communicate. Vince, I'm sorry. I love you. The weather is going to be weird because for a Buffalo December, it's actually pretty hospitable. I mean, we're looking at
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Now, there's some precipitation as of today. They're saying 75%, right? Now, I don't know what the hourly is on that because we're too far away. Precipitation, if you're talking about like a risk, that's Monday, 0%. I had to refresh the page. 0% precipitation, 50 degrees, 13 mile an hour wind. I don't know that you can ask for a nicer day than that in December in Western New York, can you?
I don't know if you can ask for a better day than that in November in Western New York.
So it does kind of bum me out, doesn't it? You like they're not getting the bitter cold, a little bit of the swirling wind, or the driving, the sleet that you'd think.
Yeah, because
hey,
I would like to see Dak Prescott try to play quarterback in that weather.
I would like to see a dome. Anytime you can get a dome football team outside trying to play in that, it's always I think that gives you an inherent advantage.
Yeah,
it really does. The officiating crew on hand for this is Craig Rolstad, and I don't know why, but I feel like I remember cussing this guy out after like a dozen beers one night.
It's just a typical night for you.
I mean, everybody I know has been there at some point in their lives, right? So if I look at all referee crews and we take a look at how they rank, let's just go by penalty count. Craig Rolstad, where is he? He's towards the bottom.
Not bad.
Towards the bottom of the league.
Let him play kind of guy.
Kind of strikes me that way. I mean, Carl Sheffers is down there with him.
He might not throw a flag for offensive offside.
right up until he sees a moment that could make a star quarterback cry. That's it. What a Karen. So that's our Chris. Who do we have on the call?
Burkhart and Greg Olson. Nationally televised.
Got the big guns on Fox.
Yeah, nationally televised.
Is Greg Olson really good enough that he holds down the top spot in the rotation?
I mean, this is his last year.
Yeah, he's talking about getting into coaching next year.
Coaching what?
He wants to coach the Carolina Panthers. Threw his proverbial hat in the ring.
Well, he's good at broadcasting.
What is this, like he's trying to do his Dan Campbell thing where he's like, I can go from being a tight end to a tight end coach to a real coach?
Apparently, it's the most transferable skill. Tight end to coach.
Jason Witten's killing it, and he just won a state championship
title in Texas, right?
In Texas, yeah.
Yeah, for what though? High school football?
Yeah.
Fine, go coach high school. You don't get to go from the booth to a headset. This is how we got Mike Mayocked. This is how the Raiders Mike Mayock themselves. Don't do this. Don't.
More like Jeff Saturday.
Jeff Saturday.
That poor bastard.
You never see that happen in the NFL. Is when you like you're done playing and then you can immediately get a coaching job. It's
Unless you've got a coked out owner that's willing to take a shot.
It's like if things don't work out with Mike McCarthy, and then all of a sudden the Cowboys have a new head coach, and it's Nate Newton.
Yes. So we've apparently got the top spot in the Fox crew. The television map. We're everywhere, but Chris made an interesting observation about the early window for CBS.
Fox.
Why is Fox subjecting the entire country to this?
Kansas City, New England.
You don't think that the Giants in New Orleans would be a more compelling game?
No.
I mean, all of these games in the Fox 1 o'clock window are trash.
Yeah, that's a rough 1 o'clock window.
Kansas City, New England, New York Giants, Saints, Bears, and Cleveland.
Woof.
I'll tell you what.
And then Atlanta, Carolina.
We all have to be rooting for Chicago in this one. I think they could do it.
Oh, yeah, I think so, too.
I think they could do it.
Yeah, Chicago's turned the corner, it seems like, offensively at least.
And that's all that matters, because what is it? Cleveland just put both of their starting offensive tackles on IR. Two of their starting defensive tackles, one of their best safety who leads the team in tackles. Like, that whole roster has just fought, like it's the Oregon Trail. They all have dysentery, and it's just a matter of time. Now all we need for them to do is try to ford the river. Like, that's it.
Well, I think starting a 38-year-old Joe Flacco two weeks in a row might be that. He might be the proverbial river.
That's amazing. So, yeah, it's interesting. Well, Chris, what's on CBS? Anything of note?
Jets
Miami
with Nance and Romo.
All right, so that's what we're watching at the tailgate then, I guess. AFC Player of the Week, Zach Wilson against the struggling Miami Dolphins.
What a world we live in. What a world.
So the injury report for Buffalo, not great. Dallas, you already heard, only has one name on it. For us, we've got an AJ Epinesa not participating. He won't play. If you call that injury week to week, there's no chance he's playing. Leonard Floyd, they have to list him. Taron Johnson's interesting to me. That ankle injury.
Yeah.
I guess the thing is, you maybe risk it this week because you know that you could probably get by the next 2 weeks without a Taron Johnson. Like, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, McDermott typically will listen to the player, and I think Johnson's probably out there because you're going to need some help with Gallup and Schultz. So,
but then after this, you could let him ride all the way to the Miami game.
Sure.
You could bench him without IRing him and just say, listen, now you're inactive, and that's fine. Rest your ankle because we're going to need it when we play for the division.
Yeah. Especially because a notable not on the injury report, at least, is he is on the injury report, Kyrie Elam. But he's working his way back. So
full participation.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. This football team is in a weird place. With this podcast would have a much different note to it if we didn't just win over the Kansas City Chiefs the way that we did. I think that you fought. You scrapped with a team that's been struggling on offense.
Yeah.
But everyone knew. Like, I talked about it in the solo preview pod that I did, that there was a lot of garbage there. There's a lot of window dressing in Kansas City that isn't, like, there's a lot that's wrong with that football team. And we did what you'd expect a good football team to do. We went in. We're also sort of flawed, but we're getting better. Like, at least we have the upshot of the fact that on offense, the problems we have are decision-driven. It's decision-making, not driven by a lack of personnel.
Yeah, right. It's not driven by the talent on the field. It's driven by the fact that they're just not executing.
And that's the issue that I think the Chiefs are running into. They're running into a wall where they go, this roster was kind of built poorly, and we slammed headfirst into the wall of Travis Kelce's production is starting to take that dip, and as he dips, we didn't do anything to buoy that at the wide receiver group, and now we're in trouble.
Right. When you're feeling the impact of a Juju Smith-Schuster departure, you know you're in rough shape in your wide receiver room.
Yeah. So the problem is you're coming off that game, and obviously we've all got a high, and you have not only a high, but you have this emotional sense of like, we're back, as the kids say, we are so back. But at the same time, you look at this game and go, not only is this going to be a rock fight, but you're going up against a team that has just been a bulldozer lately.
Yeah.
A team that at least offensively has been a machine. And there's always the NFC, AFC thing where you're like, well, we've been playing teams they haven't been playing. They've been playing teams that we haven't been playing. It's hard. You know, you see what they did to Philly, and you say to yourself, all right, maybe their defense is better than advertised. You watch them play the Seahawks, and you say, okay, the Seahawks, for what they are a team that's pretty sound. They don't make a lot of mistakes. So that team that didn't get in its own way and was creative and aggressive, they took them to the mat.
Yeah.
You see different things and you try to figure out how you stack up. I think philosophically ahead of this one, first of all, the win over Kansas City gives us some breathing room. If we're sitting here talking about our hopes to make the playoffs, this win matters. But it won't tank us if we don't win.
Yep.
So it's not that I want to dismiss it completely. And obviously I want the players to take it very seriously because there is a lot at stake given what's going on in Miami. But now we're in this world where this one loss is one you could absorb, knowing what's left on your schedule, and you could swallow that pill. It would be bitter, but you could swallow it. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, it doesn't make it a you've got to win out type of feel, right? Like Kansas City, that win gave you the opportunity to say, you know, we're going to go out and fight like hell against Dallas, but at the end of the day, if we can't get it done, we've got 3 games ahead of us to close out the season, and essentially our fate's in our hands.
Yeah.
with 3 wins.
What would you like? And then you just think about what the reasonable expectation should be heading into this game. And I know that there's people who are talking about, you know, they're having the same conversation about ahead of the Kansas City game. You got to focus, and you know, Deion Dawkins on TV talking about how it's kill or be killed. We know that as players, we got to go out there and we got to execute every week. We got to dominate because that's our only shot. All of those things are great. They sound great. They feel great to say. I've said things like that. Yeah, I remember blowing a kiss to Steven Jensen, God rest his soul. Guy was 6'4", 340 pounds. And I literally blew a kiss at him and said, okay, tough guy, during a college newspaper meeting. And he just stood up and was like, all right, well, now you understand we have to go outside. And I was like, all right. And I walked outside fully like ready. I go, okay. When we get out there, he's huge. Also, he had done some time, like some actual time. So he was a college freshman when I was a college freshman, but he was 30 years old. And I was 18.
Yeah.
So we get outside the newspaper lab, and of course everybody's watching from the window. And I'm walking out there going, yeah, this guy, he's big, but it doesn't care. I'm tough. You can't disrespect me like that. You know, you get yourself pumped up for this fight of like, oh man, this is going to be a fight. And I see him and I'm like, all right, I try to square up. I'm trying to do some things. And then I'm like, oh no, his reach is humongous. He's so much bigger than me. I'll get inside on him and I shoot and I grab him. And now, mind you, I'm also 300 something pounds. And I grab him and then we're there for a second. And he's just kind of, and I hear him go, are you going to start fighting? And I was like, I am fighting. And he laughed and goes, all right, I can't do this to you. And then what he did instead was he put me, because he just by nature caught me in like what was a standing guillotine. And my zipper of my jacket is just digging into my face. And I was like, I am fighting. And he's like, oh no. All right. And he just took me like a rag doll and flung me into like some shrubs and then went back inside. And I come back in and I'm bleeding and there's sticks in my fucking hair. And I just had to sit back down at the table and go, well, I was not prepared for that. I was not equipped
Yep.
I got myself all fired up, and all the emotion and all the rah-rah bullshit in the world can't make you ready for that fight.
Right. What's the old saying? You're everybody's ready for a fight till they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah. Or until someone just, like, catches you. Like, he didn't move when I hit him. He was like a brick wall. It was crazy. So I think about that, and I think about the Buffalo Bills against the Dallas Cowboys, and I say to myself, I like our defense. I like what Sean McDermott's done recently. And, like, the Eagles game, it kind of got away from us in the second half. He got figured out. Ahead of this game, you know, the offense started hot. A turnover leads to a touchdown drive, but otherwise we were holding serve. And then down the stretch, you started to see Andy Reid calling up scheming some things, some desperation stuff, moving the ball. But we had answers when we needed them. Mm-hmm. And realistically, that's the important thing. Like the Kadarius Toney thing. Who says he's in range for a lateral if he's not that far off sides?
Yeah.
So all this whataboutism of, well, if they called that back, what if he was just fucking on sides, but he doesn't get to the spot where Kelsey can laterally?
Well, and let's also not forget that you also have Josh Allen on the other side of the field, and even if he does score, you've got a minute 19 and 3 touchdowns or 3 timeouts left.
Ed Oliver said he was walking off the field, looking up, going, "Oh man, they left Josh too much time."
Yeah,
and then they were like, "Wait a minute, they're calling that back."
Josh said the same thing. He didn't even register that there was a penalty. He just said, "All right, let's go back to work.
Let's do this because we're going to go down there and get that game-winning field goal."
Yeah. Well, they would
have
been
a touchdown. Yeah, it would have been a touchdown. But they were pumped about that. Let me tell you who the Dallas Cowboys are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6 of their last 7 games, they have scored 33 or more points.
Yeah.
They've done it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row. Like, there's one thing when you have a big game. The Bills have done it, you know? We go out, we have a big game against a team like Miami, and then the next week our offense just flops.
Yeah.
This team has really hit a stride.
Yeah, I mean they've scored 30. They've scored fewer than 30 points 4 times this season.
Yeah.
That's a high-powered offense.
Well, and the worst part is one of their losses to Arizona.
Yeah.
But that was when I remember watching a game. You turn the ball over, you go for it a bunch of times on 4th down in the red zone and just don't get it. Like that.
They went into that game with hubris, I think. That Arizona game. They were gonna dog walk.
And I think Arizona's coach was like, I need an NFC statement win to let people know, like, I'm not a punching bag.
Right.
Like I know what I'm doing as a coach. And so the team rallied around him and it kind of worked. I think that by and large this team, what they lost at the 49ers, which I think most teams in football probably would right now. Their other loss was at the Eagles, and it was a nail-biter. They kind of went down to the wire, and I think they just washed the taste of that out of their mouths. They have been on a fucking roll this year. I think that the Bills are me in that fight scenario. If you're thinking that your defense is going to go toe-to-toe with these guys. I think that just what they do schematically, they've been calling it the Texas Coast offense because they run through the slot. Like that's the thing about who they are and what they are. When you look at the percentages, you look at who's catching what, how this is going. Like when you look at where the targets get amassed. CeeDee Lamb, 131 targets.
Yeah, he's a beast this year.
The next closest guy is a fucking tight end, and then the third one is a running back.
Yeah.
They are running an offense that's based on guys like Brandon Cooks using his speed to stress your safeties enough that they can't support that slot corner. And then once they get that, they know there's no linebacker who can cover him. And so they victimize you in that way, and they work their way down the football field. And then when you try to drop back and take those things away, say, hey, I know what I'll do. If he burns my slot off the line, it doesn't matter. Or if my slot can't get the jam, I'll shade with a linebacker. That's cool, but who's going to account for Tony Pollard?
Right. Well, I think the interesting thing that I'm going to be watching is I'm going to be really intrigued to see if they just come out and say, you know, Douglas, you're taking CD, and everybody else is just going to have to, you know, whatever you play on the back end, whether it's zone, man concept, whatever, we're not going to worry about all of what you just talked about because it's just going to be Rasul and CD.
And that's definitely a way to play.
Let the better man win, because they've done that with Rasul so far. You can argue he won the matchup against Cortland Sutton. You can argue he's won every matchup so far this season. He's held those number one receivers to some of their lowest total outputs. The two plays that he wasn't covering Cortland Sutton, one of them was the touchdown. Take away that touchdown, and that's a very pedestrian outing for Cortland Sutton. And, you go Rasul on CD, and you say, you know what, if CD Lamb's going to wind up with 6 catches for 50-some-odd yards, we'll take that. Because we feel like we can keep the rest of the guys in check.
Well, that's the one interesting thing about the way that this is all built, right? Like, you can see how Michael Gallup is kind of a non-factor for most games. He's got 2 touchdowns in the season.
And one was last week.
One was last week, so he hadn't scored much. He only has 400 yards through 14 weeks. It's not great.
Really underwhelming season for him.
And I think that knee injury really kind of derailed him. He was on his way to being like I don't know. He was going to be like a tier 2 or 3 wide receiver, but a good one.
Right.
And then that knee injury just derailed everything for them. Brandon Cooks is interesting. 5 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Not a ton more yardage. I mean, what he is he's that guy that stresses.
Yeah.
Look, if you look at first downs, Brandon Cooks has 28. CeeDee Lamb has 58.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb is where this passing game starts and ends.
CeeDee's the definition of their go-to guy.
And so that, reading all this stuff, the only thing I can think is that these guys all strike me. You think about who they are. Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks. These are all speed receivers. That's what fuels their entire offense. If you're going to have a shot at slowing this down, it's going to take a lot of physical play.
Yeah.
And that's why I like the idea of Douglas, and I don't know that we'll do it. Like, that's the thing. We can sit here and talk about it. I don't know if Sean McDermott's willing to do that. Maybe he thinks that Teron Johnson, if he's healthy, is good enough to be physical enough with CD that he can take Rasul and put him on Cooks and say, listen, don't let him get over the top. And at that point, you're just looking at Michael Gallup saying, you're going to be the guy who does most of the damage, or this offense is going to stall a little bit. I mean, I like the way we've covered tight ends recently. Like, I really have. We did a good job against Kelsey for what Kelsey is.
Yeah.
We did a good job against the last couple teams, although I think the Bengals scored a tight end touchdown against us. Yeah. But otherwise, tight ends haven't killed us this year.
You know who may be what might be a good weapon to have would be maybe a quarterback who's used to playing man-to-man coverage, physical type coverage with good recovery speed. I don't know if they've got a guy like that on the roster. But
is this your weekly like your weekly plea to just free Kyrie Elam?
This is my, if he's healthy and he's good to go, and Teron Johnson's, could you put CD, Rasul on CD man to man, and just say, Elam, you're going to lock down whichever of the other guys winds up on the other side, get up, jam them because they're smaller than you are, and you've got the speed to recover if they get beat deep, but we're going to maybe put a safety up over the top.
And this is the thing. Like, I've been watching this all season going, at some point there's going to be a tipping point. Now, Benford's been doing okay.
Yeah.
But there's going to come a game where you're like, oh, that team has some weapons that we want to play a little differently. Hey, they have Jake Ferguson, who, hilariously, second on the team in receiving yards for a tight end. Mm-hmm. Second and he has 5 touchdowns. He's the second most targeted player on the team.
Yeah, I mean, Dak likes his tight ends. He always has.
So if you take a look at this and you go, hey, we're going to try to take away but look at what they're doing. They're doing a lot of what the Bills have been doing. Beating teams up in the center of the field, because realistically, that's where your best matchup is.
Absolutely.
Week in and out. Linebackers can't match up with slot receivers. These athletic type tight ends, we're seeing it with Kincaid every single week. When you have that dynamic athlete at tight end who also has soft hands, you can get away with a lot of shit in between the numbers that other teams really can't defend, specifically when you have a Brandon Cooks who can take the lid off a defense. Right now, nobody wants to drop down. It's like we talked about in our recap, the Gabe Davis problem. We need to solve that because we need to keep those safeties from coming down in the box and making things hard for guys like Gabe Davis or for Kincaid. We need to get those deep shots working. This is a game you might be able to get some of that in. But they're designed to take advantage of the exact same thing. So it's just going to be who executes that better on defense. I think that you're going to see them try to drive the ball up the seams and then out of the backfield. That's your plan of attack against the Buffalo Bills, especially a team that you know doesn't defend the run well. Play action passing and then hitting us in the seams and at the linebacker level is going to be a huge narrative of this game when all is said and done. I think you could do yourself a lot of favors by making every sticky, physical man cornerback or man coverage player you have available to you on game day.
Yeah.
Because you may find out you had a game plan and that you're better off if you let somebody else who's more adept at that work with it and make that your game plan. My fear is that we'll go into this with that, hey, zone. We're going to run a zone-heavy approach. That's what everyone's done. How's it working?
Right.
How is it working? It's fucking, 5 straight points over 30, straight games over 33 points. That's crazy. On the flip side of this, though, everyone's like, well, you can't get into a firefight with that team. You were just saying it beforehand, Chris. Chris was pointing out that the line on the game, where are we at? The under over?
I saw a 2 on the Yahoo app.
And then the under over was what?
50.5.
And you were like, oh, take the under. And Ryan goes, nah, give me that over.
It's a shootout, yeah.
I think if there was a team with the personnel capable of taking advantage of this Dallas team, it's the Buffalo Bills. When you take a look at the way that we're built compared to how they are, Bland is having an amazing season at cornerback. Mm-hmm. What I think I heard on the radio the other day, they tricked somebody. They were like, hey, here's these wide receiver stats. It's like 8. They were like, oh, what pass catcher is this? And they're like, it's, 8 receptions, 5 touchdowns, 200 and something yards. And they were like, I don't know. They're like, no, that's Bland, the cornerback from Dallas. The dude has 5 interceptions for touchdowns. That's crazy. And that also feeds in to what some of this, that's the other side of this coin. Their offense puts up points, but so does their defense. Yeah. And their defense generates turnovers that lead to things like their kicker is running away with scoring this year because they force a lot of negative plays.
Yeah, and he's yet to miss a field goal this year, too.
He has yet to miss a field goal. I mean, he's due. Outside
one would think.
Outside in Buffalo.
Yeah, one would think.
It makes sense. Here would be the place you would do it. But so if it's talking about how the Bills match up with this defense, I keep thinking about this because I look at their defense and I say to myself, Bland has had he's got those accolades, but then also he got kind of crushed in that Seattle game.
The first half, they picked on him bad, and then he had to pick 6 in the second half. So.
Sure. Yeah. And this is the thing. But now what do you want to do? Do you want to duck that guy?
No.
Knowing Stephon Gilmore is probably going to travel. They've been doing that now. Mm-hmm. Stephon Gilmore is probably going to travel with Stephon Diggs. Do you want to try to avoid... That's the problem when you play good football teams, and it's the thing that I hate with most attempts to try to preview a matchup. When you say to yourself, well, here's where I can find an advantage. Sometimes there is no inherent advantage. Sometimes it's like me trying to bum rush the tall guy outside. Sometimes you have to figure out this is my problem. This is a problem. What can I do? And I just got to go try to execute. That's it. That's all you can do. Their safety play isn't great. Bland is not this all-world corner. He's just very good if you throw him up. If you throw him an interceptable ball, his ball skills are very good.
Yeah.
And he's been capitalizing at a record rate this year. But outside of that, I think that there's opportunities here.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And what some of that's going to involve, how scared of this pass rush are you? Micah Parsons on Spencer Brown, I saw that when they released the schedule, and my butthole puckered a little bit.
Yeah, I think mine did too. But Spencer Brown's played better as of late.
Micah Parsons.
And I think the way, I think the way that they've allowed Josh Allen to play since Joe Brady took over the offense, I'm a lot less scared of what Josh Allen was when he was under Ken Dorsey, which was pocket, don't bail unless I absolutely have to bail, and by then it's too late to bail kind of offense. He's much more willing to, I'm feeling it, I'm going. And, that's one of the things that I think you can do well against Micah Parsons is that if if he gets the first couple times, if he gets stymied, if Spencer Brown happens to win the battle, if they bring in Latavius Murray and have
You're going to give him help.
He's going to get frustrated. He's going to over pursue, and Allen's going to be able to capitalize on that. I think one of the things that the offense is going to have to do, and it's something that Dan Orlovsky broke down that they did really well against Kansas City, is set up that 4-man on either side of the rotation or on either side of the formation. Basically, I like my skill guys better than I like your coverage guys. So here's 4. Good luck picking one. Yep. And they did a really good job of setting that up through motion, through jet motion, through just lining up that way. And it was just kind of like Diggs, Davis, Kincaid, Cook. Good luck, right? And Josh, just pick your poison to make the right decision, and he made the right decision by and large against Kansas City. You hope he can continue making the right decision.
See, I've seen I feel like I've sounded like a broken record on this podcast this year, because every week when we talk about how to attack an opposing team, I go the linebacker core, because our skill players are just better than most linebackers. The Cowboys have some athletic, kind of rangy athletes that are good in coverage. So with this, it's almost like that approach might be what you need. You need the eye candy. You need all of the things working in concert to really try to execute in this one. And, I mean, Chris, at this point, we're just beating around the bush. Why don't we just get right to the keys to victory?
Wow, that's a lot of keys. Bigger the keychain, more powerful the man.
First one. If we're talking about the offense, I want to attack the slot, and I want to get creative with Diggs and the motion that we use. So, Bland and Gilmore, we just talked about it. Really solid talents. Their slot corner is allowing the most yards against on the entire team. He's the weak link in that secondary. Looking at him, he allows a lot of catches, a lot of first downs, and safety Jaron Kearse isn't far behind him. The way I think about this is that Diggs has experience working in the slot. He's good. He's shifty. He doesn't win with speed. You know, it's like when we were decrying the screen passes. He's not a winner with speed. He's a winner with nuance and just quick, clean routes.
Yeah,
that's how he beats everybody. So with that, you can get yourself a few advantages by playing him or motioning him into the slot. The first one is that if they don't have Gilmore shadow, you're going to find yourself with an amazing matchup. You're going to have Stephon Diggs matched up against a cornerback who has no prayer of covering him, and limited linebacker assistance given what we have coming out of the backfield on most of those downs.
Right.
Or also a spy on Josh
right, you're
Allen.
going to have to account for Allen. Yeah.
These linebackers have so many responsibilities. And so putting a Stephon Diggs in the slot, if they don't shadow him with Gilmore in that way, it creates so much conflict with where their priorities should lie that I think you could really make hay against those safeties and against these linebackers in between the numbers. If they decide to move Gilmore with Diggs to the slot and motion that cornerback back outside to go take whoever our boundary receiver on that snap is, whether it's Shakir, whether it's Gabe Davis, whether it's Cook, whether you split Kincaid out. You have a lot of options at your disposal. And oh, by the way, you can't also take the worst cornerback on your team who doesn't play the boundary, move him out there because Stephon Diggs is now in the middle, and then also have the worst safety on your team over the top of him.
Right.
Oh, you better not do that. I think doing this could create some really fantastic matchups outside for the Buffalo Bills. Like, you can't imagine that slot corner is going to have a good time against Gabe Davis.
No.
No, you would hate that matchup if you were a coach. So what you would try to do is say, okay, well, where are we rotating to, and then who are they bringing in, and what does the matchup become? Just the ability to do that, I think, if you did it early, in the game, you'd give them a lot to think about. You know, their defensive coordinator isn't a slouch. Quinn?
Yep.
He's a good coach, at least defensively.
Should be head coach.
Well, he was a head coach once. And
Should be a head coach.
It went fucking terribly. He was a coach of the Atlanta Falcons, and it went terribly. But as a defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn knows what he's doing. But you would give him a lot of food for thought right out of the box of like, oh, shit, I don't want that guy out there. Well, how do I avoid it? Well, I guess I have to leave Stephon Gilmore out on the outside. But what if... And this is how, like, people talk about dictating to the other team. This is how you dictate to the opposing defense. You find your mismatches and generate them this way. I mean, this is a team that's dying for big plays from its wide receiver core. This game, and with that alone, knowing that Bland isn't the best coverage guy, I mean, look, he got wrecked. You were talking about the Seahawks game. It was 137 yards for, 6 catches, 137 in the first half of that Seahawks game. Now later, he came back and got a pick 6. You know what? I'll take that. If you gave me that same fucking stat line, give Gabe Davis 6 catches, 130 yards and a tutty versus a pick 6. Ooh, I don't give a fuck. You move the football. I think that he's not infallible, and if you can lure Gilmore into the middle of the field and open up those boundaries, we might actually see a game where that downfield passing that we've been missing for a while here starts to work, starts to come to fruition for us.
Here's a key in the passing game. The tight ends are going to play a massive role in this game. Whenever you look at position groups and where you're going to find success against teams, one of the things that I like doing, now that fantasy football is a thing, right? There's a ton of metrics out there. Mm-hmm. Dallas is 30th in the NFL against tight ends. And when it's schedule adjusted, they're averaging 1.56 fantasy points per target, which is, again,
that means a catch on almost every single target.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's where you're going to find your success because, as we've talked about, slot corners, tight end, linebackers that have trouble in coverage. So Kincaid, probably Knox. You're going to see an expanded role for Knox this week. More targets, probably. That's where you're going to beat this Dallas team, is in those slot situations.
What I don't want to see the Bills do, though, is this thing of take your foot off the gas. Let's take the air out of the ball. You're not going to win that game. Because you tried to do that against Kansas City, who is a much more flawed offense, and you almost lost that game. This is a game where you literally have to just keep punching them. Yep. And this is like, I don't know, like if I can compare movies, this is Rocky 4. Like, you have to get in there and just let Ivan Drago hammer away at you for a couple rounds until his cardio wears out, and just hope that you can outlast him and still have some gas left in the tank. Like, that's it. That's what this game is. It's Rocky 4.
Yeah.
It's this guy has you outclassed in a lot of traditional ways, but you got heart. You got gumption. What is it? I think Mickey was already dead by then. Didn't he die in the movie with Clubber Lang?
Yeah.
Chris wouldn't know. He doesn't watch movies.
What one was that? Rocky
4.
Yeah,
where he
I've
has to
seen
go
it.
to Russia?
Yeah. Drago?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay, so was Mickey already dead in that movie?
He might have been.
I feel like he had to be. Why don't you Google that while we're talking about this? You have to attack them. And you gotta hold court and hold serve with them for at least, you gotta go into the third, tied or with a lead, or at least not down by more than one score. If you let them get a 2-score lead at any point in time early in this game, I don't know how you come back from that, because this team is built on the idea that we make you one-dimensional, and then we sick our pass rush on you, and you die.
The other thing I would say is that they're not a great running team, right?
No, which is crazy given what they used to be.
Yeah, and what, that offensive line got old quick. They got old really fast, and they let Ezekiel Elliott go and thought that Pollard was the guy, and he hasn't been able to find success because Pollard's never been a guy that's been great at breaking tackles. He's been a guy that's been good in space, and he's good, until he gets touched, and then he's very easy to bring down. And I think, so if Buffalo has a key to victory defensively, I think they have to try to force Dallas into running situations. And I don't know if that's present them with fronts that are attractive to the run and hope that Dak is willing to check into it. It's maybe, get Dak frustrated early or maybe even discouraged early if they can force an early turnover, and Dak is a little bit more willing to check out of things. I mean, Dak Prescott, by all accounts, is a game manager first and a guy that's going to go win you a football game second, right? Dak Prescott he's got a lot of weapons on his team. He's got a lot of good play callers. He's got a good offensive line. And his goal out there is to just not make enough mistakes to where you're going to lose the football game. So you've got to force him into some decision making to where, like you do against a Tua Tagovailoa, where you take his first read away, you make him pump on his first read, and he becomes a very pedestrian type of quarterback, versus a guy in Josh Allen who is almost better when he doesn't have his first read and he's left to kind of his own devices in the backfield. I think defensively, they've really got to figure out a way to frustrate Prescott early. I think you may be in a better situation if you can get them to run the ball more. And again, I don't know if that's 4-man boxes, 5-man boxes, to try to get them to run. But defensively, they're going to have to come up with a couple stops, and the offense, this is going to be the game. You guys are going to have to score points against a good defense because they haven't done it yet this season.
Rocky 3.
Rocky 3, he died. There's one other weak link you can attack on this offense, and it's right tackle Terrence Steele. And the only reason I'm thinking about this is because I remember what happened when Lane Johnson went out right before the Philly game. And they had to put in a backup who wasn't very good, and for the whole first half, we victimized that poor guy. It was Floyd, it was Rousseau. They would rotate who was on him and just worked that right tackle to death. This is the game you want to employ that exact same mentality. Because when you look at the numbers and how Terrence Steele stacks up against the rest of the offensive line, he's given up 7 sacks on the year. He's almost double the next closest player to him. He's given up 28 hurries, which is almost triple the next player on the roster to him.
Yeah.
He's given up more quarterback hits. He's given up he's the worst rated starter on that offensive line. When you're a team like Buffalo that has not only good defensive tackle talent from a pass rush perspective, but you also have depth at defensive end and guys you can rotate. Like, if A.J. Epinesa is out, Kingsley Jonathan will probably play.
Sure.
I don't expect much from Von Miller. I don't think you can.
I mean, we talked about it in the group chat. I thought he had his best game of the year against Kansas City. He came up, in that final sack to end the game, he finally got home, I mean, he kept fighting. I thought he had the most, it seemed as though he had the most keep going that he's had all season so far. I mean, he's been good off the snap, but as soon as somebody gets his paws on him, he's been kind of dead in the water. He had the one that they got called a fumble, but that rightfully got called back. Mm-hmm. That he was the one that hit Mahomes' arm. And then again, the last play of the game where they got to Mahomes, that was Von that kind of got around the end and came back around the backside. So, it was a low bar, but I think there's promise. Let's not forget, he's 2 weeks removed from 1 year from his injury.
Okay.
So when you put that into perspective and what you really should have expected from Von Miller, an ACL at the age of 32, a year, to get your feet underneath you and to kind of feel good, and then a couple weeks to work back into game shape, I would expect him to continue getting better. If he doesn't continue getting better, now what that looks like, I don't know.
But we have but the idea is there's a 3-man rotation you can throw at a bad offensive tackle.
Yeah, absolutely.
On a team that has this powerhouse offense. But we have guys who are proven pass rushers.
Absolutely.
Who have proven that they're threats. They're dogs.
Yeah.
And if you go out there half-cocked, they better have a plan for us. They better have a plan for that. Because all of this stuff about, hey, we're going to hit the slot. Okay, well, we have slot talent. We have physical cornerbacks that we can play. And we can get you to hold the ball for just a second or two. That's all we need.
Yeah.
I think that's where you're going to win and lose in the trenches. That's probably your best bet, is just to pick on that tackle the same way you did against the Eagles. You do that, you might be able to get out to the kind of start that you saw in that Eagles game.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't hold them to as few points before halftime, but this could be the way that you suppress their offense, because Dak Prescott's a runner, but he's not Josh Allen.
No.
I just think that you're going up, you're kind of undergunned for this fight, but you still got to fight it. So however you go out there and approach it, Buffalo, do it smartly, pick your battles, and be aggressive. That's it. That's what's going to win the day.
Yep.
Guys, I can't wait to see what's on the other side of this. We got our tailgate. Again, 4180 dock slot. If you need a parking spot, you want to park with us, go ahead and send us a DM, send us an email at rockpilreport716@gmail.com, or reach out to him yourself. Doc Slot Facebook group. You can message him there. You can go ahead and get yourself a parking spot, and you can figure out. Chris, we have like what, a 20-minute walk into the stadium from tailgate to seats.
I mean, if you're drinking enough for 2 days, it'll take you that long to get to the stadium. It's like a 10-minute walk.
Yeah,
and all cocktails and syrups provided by Justin Uhlberg.
And I haven't been on lately. Shout out to the Bills for streamlining the stadium entry.
I know.
Process.
I know.
It only took them 5 years to get with the times. But
mean
shout out to the team.
You mean B500?
No, I'm talking about streamlining getting into the stadium now that they've got those.
Yeah, I mean being 500. Now no one goes.
Yeah.
Awesome. And on that note, guys, we got to get the hell out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. That's Ryan Lasal. And this has been your Week 15 preview.